Okay, so welcome, Kim.
Thank you, Jono.
Into the Zoom room. It's nice to have a little chat. So, yeah, shall we have a look at today's quote and lesson? And probably not going to have time to do the text, but if we can do a lesson and quote and meditation, I think that would probably, because it's an hour ahead there, which is 10 o'clock. So
yeah,
you probably want to end it in an hour or so. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. Share the screen and let's get into lesson 225. Actually, probably what we should do is just have a look at the quote. I think that would be a good idea. So let's look at today's quote. Can you read that?
yeah. How you love yourself is how you teach others to love you.
So any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think the how part is a question. We learn a lot around it's difficult to love anyone else if you're not loving yourself. But how you love yourself is, I guess, around how you treat and behave for yourself, and how you show respect for yourself.
It was a deep question. How do you love yourself? Can you even love yourself? Really? It's an interesting question.
Well, it depends who yourself
I love myself implies a split, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Self-love.
Who's yourself?
So who's loving who? This is the question.
Yeah.
So we're using language, which is dualistic by nature, to point how you love yourself. But what I like about the quote is kind of open-ended. It doesn't say love yourself in this way or love yourself. No, it says how you love yourself. It's how you teach others to love you. So do you love yourself specially? It's all about narcissistic self-love. Do you love yourself conditionally? It's like, yeah, I love myself, except when I get things wrong, then I beat myself up.
Yeah.
So this, it's conflicted. Or is there just a pure formless awareness of perfect love? So you recognize I am that love. I am that presence, which is, the ultimate unconditional love. But it's not really, in truth, I love myself. You've transcended that. There's no duality anymore. It's like I am myself. I am love, not I love myself. So this is what the quote's pointing to. If you can get to that state of merging with the oneness, then you love yourself in a divine way, in the ultimate unconditional way. Then you teach others to love you that way, because that's what you represent. And whatever you give, you receive. So again, it puts the onus on you, because you want them to love you. Love yourself in this way first. And this is the great knowledge, the great truth that everyone's been seeking forever. This to love yourself, to merge with the essence of love. That's really to love yourself, recognizing that essence is yourself. That's what it really means, which actually very few people realize. That's to love yourself. It's not, oh, I love myself. No, because there's a split still. Who's the I that loves? That loves yourself. It's to merge with the awareness, the loving awareness that you are. I am that awareness. I just am it, and so of course it's me. It's my awareness, my fundamental awareness. Therefore, if I am that loving awareness, I must love myself.
And true self. Or
Yeah, well, it transcends the duality of the statement, doesn't it? I love myself. It just goes beyond that and says, I am myself. The highest level. You recognize that's just you, and it's just an accepted fact. It's the isness of being, which see if we can course back. Exactly, that's what I wanted. So if you look at the highest level of enlightenment, God view as self, just is. Right? So I am that I am. It just is. It's ineffable and it's pure consciousness, pure awareness in our terms. Because consciousness has different connotation in course terms. It means there's still an idea of separation. Pure awareness, you are that presence. So you don't love that presence. You are that presence. You fully identify. And so that's how to love yourself. Truly. And you transcend the duality of being a separate self entirely. And the world doesn't really understand that. But people will, people who are open to it will resonate with that frequency. That's why the gurus and the masters, they always have followers, because they're like, I like, there's something about this energy that's amazing, and I revere that. And then, they want to spend time with that, and they want to draw on that presence for themselves. And so, people get that, the love of the guru, that is devotional love. That comes because the guru is at that level. They truly love themselves, and then they teach other people how to love them. It's not a normal special love, human love. Possibly you could say people, they have special attachments to their gurus. That does happen, but there's a reverence. It's not like a romantic relationship. It's just there's a reverence for the guru because of what they represent. The true seeker knows, okay, this is the divine. This is divine in human form, and it's sacred. And I have a respect and reverence for it because of where it's coming from. So then that guru is taught the world and his disciples to love him in the way that he loves, because of he is that energy. He epitomizes this oneself. So yeah, interesting quote. So ideas just to make you think. I'm going to start doing that more, putting less teaching and saying, okay, well, here's an idea, contemplate it, think about it. And then just do the lesson and contemplate and see how because ultimately, that's what it comes down to, your own realization. It's much more in the sort of Zen way of teaching, which is experiential. Experientially exploring the truth for yourself, coming to your own realizations. So the Zen teacher doesn't teach the truth. He asks you a question like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Or how do you subdivide the districts of Tokyo into 10 pieces, or some? It's just like totally flips the student's mind and gets them to think differently and change their perceptions. And they'll say, the typical Zen teacher, the student will come along and say, teach me Zen. And he'll go, I have nothing to teach you. And the student will go, well, but you've got disciples in the monastery, and so how can you say there's nothing to teach me? And then that becomes the student's koan. Okay, we'll go think about that. I have nothing to teach you. Because there literally is nothing to teach. There's no thing. It's just formless awareness. Ramana Maharshi said the same thing. People would come to him and said, "I have nothing to teach you. Just sit in silence. That's your biggest teacher." Because in that total silence, you come to an awareness of who you are, which is love. And then then you love yourself. You love yourself because you are that self. You are that loving awareness and nothing else. And so there's no split anymore. I don't love myself. I am my capital self. I just am that presence.
I mean, just on that, okay, maybe just to answer, I did look at that question, how do I truly love myself? And I just closed my eyes, maybe not as long as, maybe just a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, I'm just going into my awareness. How well I did that, I don't know, but that's just what came to me. That was my experience.
You went into some kind of deeper awareness.
Yeah, I can't say it was that deep because it was not for long, but it was just more,
a bit different from your normal.
My eyes and going into inside where like I'll do when meditating, etc. That's just where I went. Yeah, I didn't really say much.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point. When you, as I say, when you reach a state where nothing comes to you, you have no thoughts or emotions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think things did first come to me as like, okay, you start thinking that, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna go inside myself. And yeah.
No, that's the essence of Zen. Just stop the mind and experience the nothingness, and then you get it. In the stillness and in the silence, there's the answer. But you have to still the mind to get there. So the whole practice is about helping the student to still his or her mind and just have beginner's mind, like totally open, and just be open to that awareness arising. And then, you don't need lifetimes of practice or lots of teaching. Just like, you can awaken in a moment because you just have that awareness. So it's like asking a question, how do I truly love myself? That's like a Zen koan. How do I truly love myself? And then you contemplate that. And then for a while, maybe the mind's busy, and then maybe at a point it just quiets and you just sit. And in that stillness, you get the answer. It's like, well, so I don't try to love myself, but I truly love myself. I'm trying to love myself. I'm missing the point, aren't I? How can you try and love yourself? It implies a split. It implies, if love is perfectly one, then trying means that there's an aspect of yourself that doesn't love yourself, and you're trying to love yourself, but actually by trying, you're emphasizing that there's still a split, and you still don't love yourself. And the harder you try, the more difficult it seems, because you set up a game where you're trying and you're never gonna get there because you're trying. Just by the definition of trying, you're saying, I don't have it now. And so this is the fundamental realization of all those who became enlightened. They're like, well, it's just there now, and it's always been there. And it's just an acceptance of, yes, I am that presence. I am that loving awareness. Maybe they don't even verbalize it. It's just an experience. It's just a pure experience of pure formless awareness. Arising in their mind. And, that presence, that's beyond words. So that's why they often struggle to put it into words. All they can do is point with the words to help you to experience that state. That's all they can do with the teaching. So it's like, okay, I can't really give you that state. It's already in you. But maybe I can help you, point you there so you can experience that state for yourself, and then you'll know experientially what I'm talking about. And then there's no more need for teaching at that point, because like, well, you've experienced it, so you get it. So in this second half of the workbook, it's much more experiential. The lessons change their tone a bit, and they're very short. So just 2 paragraphs. There's an experiential prayer, like a request to this presence, God. And the idea is it's just there to point you in the right direction, to point you into an experience of it. So yeah, let's have a look at the lesson, shall we?
So before going into the lesson, again, like, I'd actually love myself, and where people are struggling with that, where in this form, I know you said, okay, well, you can try love yourself, but it's I guess it's like a concept, and it's really going into who you really are, into formless awareness. But if someone feels that the spiritual stuff doesn't work for them, and they feel that they've tried, what do you think is happening there?
I think there's resistance to the truth. I think the ego is putting up a fight, saying no, stuff's not going to work, and they might have tried an approach, and maybe wasn't the full truth. Spiritual stuff doesn't work. Well, what spiritual stuff? There's many different paths.
Different ways, yeah.
So was it a non-dual path? Was it esoteric spirituality? You got the angels, unicorns version of, and people think that's spiritual. There's many crystals, healing, Reiki, all that stuff. So I'd have to say, well, what have you done? I'd have to understand.
And
if it wasn't an authentic path, there was a lot of magic in it, then they weren't really on a spiritual path. They're actually on another version of the ego's path. So of course that's not going to work, because it's not the truth. It's never going to work. So I'd say that they probably weren't following an authentic spiritual path, because if they really did a non-dual path, that will work. That will collapse the ego ultimately. That's the only thing that's going to work. So you can try and compromise all you like, and there's many paths that allow you to do that, because they sort of make this world and another world real, and you say, well, they're both real. So even an alternative school, I spoke to a guy last year, like the alternative school of non-duality. I just laughed. I was like, how can you have an alternative? Can you not see the complete contradiction in terms there? There is no alternative to non-duality. Non-duality is non-dual by definition. So how can you have an alternative? Then it wouldn't be the alternative to non-duality. It would be duality. It would be a dualistic teaching. You couldn't see that. But there's an example of someone who didn't really want to see in truth what's going on, because he found the pure non-dual teaching, like Course in Miracles or Advaita, difficult. He went to a devolved version and said, oh, well, I'm of the alternative school. And then people invent all kinds of stuff just so the ego can continue with its shenanigans and make this world real and the other world real. He says, well, I don't have to choose between these worlds. I'm like, but you have to. You can't have truth and illusion. You can't have love and hatred at the same time. They contradict each other. Surely that's completely obvious, but it wasn't to him. So I started trying to make as good an argument as possible, but he was like, having none of it. He said, no, you people are all black and white. The other schools, the non-dual school, he said, you're not open enough. It's like too exclusive. Everything is part of non-duality, which then by definition means that all illusions are true as well. It's all God. So then all the pain and the suffering and the misery and the sickness and the death happens in this world is also part of truth. That's also real. So therefore, there's something other than love that's real. Now you have a schizophrenic God. Love on the one hand, but also, fear and anger and hatred and all the other stuff. And it's all equally real. Well, what basis do you have to choose then? If it's all equally real, how do you choose it? If that were the truth, it would be as valid to go and hug someone as to go and stab them to death with a knife. Do you see? Because it's like, well, it's all true. So what basis for decision do you have then? For accurate decision making that's going to be helpful? You don't really. So this is the problem. If you compromise on this perfect love, and you allow something else into your mind, then you just have a compromise. You have two things going on, and they don't reconcile.
Mm.
And so what I love about the Course is he's very clear, very unambiguous, unequivocal, saying, look, there's only one right way. Whether you like it or not, you can fight that all you want. You can delay your awakening to that truth, but eventually you will accept it because that's the truth. So why not just accept it now? Save yourself a whole lot of pain and suffering. Why delay unnecessarily? But I think you have to be ready. I think you have to be at a point where you're like, okay, I've had enough really. I've had enough of all this suffering and pain and misery and death that I experience in this world. And I'm ready to hear the truth without any mollycoddling, without any fudging it, no compromise. Just give me the truth. And then the Course in Miracles will work for you because you're ready for it. Otherwise, it'll be too much, and people then look for something else. They look for a watered down version of spirituality that's more to their taste. Okay, so now who's choosing? Clearly it's the ego. You have a preference for that because it helps your ego to stay in business rather than just going, okay, well, my ego might not like it, but actually the truth is true. And my only job is to accept it. I can't create truth. Truth is true. My only job is to see it and accept it as what it is. So there's a humbling. That's why I say surrender to God. It's a humbling before that, saying, yes, actually I was clueless. I didn't really know. And I surrender to this and I allow this knowledge in. I accept it finally as the only truth, which means I must reject other seeming truths. I can't accept that truth and accept the ego's truths. It's not possible. They contradict each other. Yeah. So this whole point of mind training is to get us very clear as to the truth and help us to see the truth and the illusion clearly, and then choose clearly, make an unambiguous choice. In each lesson, there's a choice that he's asking you to make in the form of a statement, an assertion, an affirmation about reality. So do you want to read this? Read the original and then the alternative.
God is my Father, and his Son loves him. Perfect love is my source, and its extension loves it.
Yeah. So it's useful to read both and then go, use whichever one works better for you. Most people in the group seem to like the alternative. But occasionally someone says, oh, no, actually the original quite worked for me. Just depends. So use whichever speaks to you, whichever one you can feel into more. That's really the idea. So that the words are used as a pointer into a state of mind. It's not really about understanding them intellectually. They just open your mind to an experience.
Yeah, I mean, the second one definitely does that more in terms of the experience. But I do find, I mean, it's helpful to read the first one. That's the original, but you also
I think
get
it's
the
helpful for
concept.
learning.
So that gives you the concept, and then the second one gives the experiential version. Yeah.
And then just learning, okay, well, actually, this is what it means. So by reading both, you go, oh, okay, well, I'm understanding what this language means, and through the translation.
Yeah,
and that in the end, these words are pointers. Words are not sacred; they're part of duality. They're just pointers to the truth. So whether you call it God the Father or perfect love, your source, an extension, or the Son, it doesn't really matter, as long as you have access to the experience that it's pointing to. So if the first one blocks that experience, then it would be better to use the second, because the whole point of the words is to facilitate that experience for you. So, you use the words which bring you that experience more.
It does.
Oh. Okay, so.
But I think the first original ones give you that direction of, there is more that it does come from what was more traditional Christian religion. God is my Father and His Son loves him. Because then you sort of picture, you do kind of picture something that's more separate.
No, sometimes separate Father.
Yeah.
Which is why they use the language, because even Jesus, 2,000 years ago, he used this language because people could kind of understand it. They could get some, even though it wasn't the ultimate truth, because everyone knows what a father and a son is. They could kind of resonate with it a bit more than maybe saying you are that. Although he did say that, he said, you are I am the Father, and the Father and the one are, Father and I are one, and we are all one, essentially. So he did say that. But the language he used was a language that maybe people could connect to and say, okay, Father and Son, I can kind of get that. I'm like, the Son of God. God's like big Father in the sky. Not ultimately true, but maybe it's taking them in the right direction, at least, into a belief that there's some other power than them, which is actually part of the spiritual maturation process. And you familiar with spiral dynamics? Spiral dynamics? Doesn't it ring a bell?
Yeah, I think you've taken us through that.
Spiral dynamics stages. Let's go to spiral dynamic stages. Doesn't look like that's that clear, does it? Let's try this one. Yeah, so it goes from, I don't know if you can see that.
Oh yeah, I have seen this before. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just another hierarchy, really. It's they're all pretty similar. If you look at this hierarchy, it's also another hierarchy. It goes from the lower to the higher, and they've got different ways of categorizing that. This is saying, well, you start at the base level, survival, and then you move up. You move up through these levels, and they're color coded. So you go through security, and you go through red, which is power. It's all about me. So this is purely egocentric. Think Julius Malema, pure egocentric. I want the power for myself, and there's no sense of a like a higher power. I'm God. At the stream of it. Did you watch the Moses movie? I put it out a couple of weeks ago.
I didn't get to watch it. Exodus, no.
Yeah, Exodus.
Watch that. Yeah.
So in there, there's a scene where Pharaoh is having a good old rant, and he's saying to the God of the Israelites, Moses, he's saying, "I am God." I am God. Now I'll show you who can kill better. And it's just pure like power God. I am God. Of course, it comes very short because he's not. It's just his ego thinking that he's God. So it was quite well demonstrated in that movie. But the point is, if you have some concept, even of a father God, some kind of order above your own, it does take you higher. So it's an advance to go even into a formal religion. Okay, there is actually an absolute God from this power God state. So we have to go through that in our spiritual maturation. Okay, even if it's not the ultimate God, it's some concept of God in the sky who's got some authority over me. It's still better than no, I'm God and I do whatever I want. I just make up the rules because there's some other authority. And then you evolve through the levels. You go through orange and green, yellow. It's much more integral. It's much more like, okay, actually, I'm starting to realize now that God is myself. I'm moving more to that God is in my own awareness. It's not some power outside of me, which is the blue idea. God is within me. God is in fact my true self. So I am God. I am that presence, but not in an egoic way. At the highest level, coral is an awareness. I am that presence, but not in an egoic way. It's like I am the presence of the whole. I am all of it. I am the essence of life itself. And I surrender to that. So my separate self has disappeared, and I'm in the oneness, and I identify only with that. So that's just another conception, and then you see how that coral would be pretty similar to this, wouldn't it? The highest self, enlightenment, ineffable, pure consciousness. There's different ways of framing the same thing. You realize you are that self. So the highest level, and then today's lesson speaks to that. God is my Father, and His Son loves Him. So perfect love is my source, and its extension loves it. So the previous lesson was the source loves its extension. Well, then the extension also loves the source. Why is that? Because it's one awareness. It's actually the same awareness. And these words, dualistic words, where there seems to be a separate source and extension that love each other, actually those words are just being used to point to the idea that they're actually the same. In heaven, there's no source and its extension. There's only one awareness. Okay. So that we use the words to overcome the seeming split, to overcome the seeming duality, and restore that awareness, the one awareness, to our minds. So the words are useful to overcome the dualistic split, but that you don't stop there, which is why he says in this mind training, in the introduction to part 2, he says words will mean little now. Do you want to read that?
Okay. Words will mean little now. We use them only as guides on which we do not now depend. For now we seek direct experience of truth alone. The lessons that remain are merely introductions to the times in which we leave the world of pain and go to enter the peace. Now we begin to reach the goal as course is set and find the end toward which our practicing was always geared.
It's taking us beyond words, saying very clearly in the second part. First part is really about, it's quite a lot of teaching, longer lessons. It's about trying to get to grips with the ego's thought system, to see it, and to undo a lot of it, to say, okay, I don't believe in that anymore because I can see it's falsity and it's insanity. So a lot of mind training exercise designed to bring the ego up and then let it go. Now, in the second part, it's just pointing, using the words directly to this source. Saying, okay, we'll just use the words to go into it. And that's why they're short and simple. A lot of the, like in the Eastern teachings, Zen and other of these traditions, they use koans and they use short sutras. It's a short, brief, and the whole point is just to point the student into a state of mind. So the words are just the starting point. The words are the starting point for an experience. It's not like lengthy knowledge they have to learn. They have to learn theological ideas, concepts. It's like, no, the words just take you into the experience. So we're going into that kind of Zen case, go into the experience of it, because then you start knowing the truth experientially. It's not someone's told you the truth and said, well, the truth is this and the truth is that, and it's a dogma and it's a conceptual knowledge, which is what religions are based on. It's your own experience. So then you become a mystic. You've experienced it yourself, and that's the most, powerful way. How can you know God if you haven't experienced it yourself? Well, it's self-evident you can't. If it's just intellectual in your mind and without experience, then it's just conceptual knowledge. It's not experiential at all. Okay, and then read number 2. So it just gives you some hints of how to practice this.
Now we attempt to let the exercise be merely a beginning. We wait in quiet expectation for our pure formless awareness of perfect love and source. It has promised it will take the final step itself, and we are sure its promises are kept. We have come far along the road, and now we wait for it. We will continue spending time with it each morning and at night, as long as it makes us happy. We will not consider time a matter of duration now. We will use as much as we will need for the result that we desire, nor will we forget our earlier remembrance in between. According to pure formless awareness of perfect love, when we have need of it, as we are tempted to forget our goal.
Any thoughts on that? So he's really saying, go into the silence.
Yeah.
Silence. Use the words as pointers.
We will not consider time a matter of duration now. I mean, it's like not that time reality anymore.
Yeah. So what he drops then, you notice he drops you'll spend 15 minutes or 10 minutes, or that was in the first part. He's not saying how long you should spend now. It's just going, well, spend as long as long as you can. Just drop into a state and maybe you spend half an hour there.
Yeah, and I don't really give instructions on what you need to do in those 15 minutes, really. Anyway, it's like they give you lessons, say spend 50 minutes on it, but I know you do the meditations, but
well,
I was always wondering, like, what, and if you don't do that, and if it's your self-study, what you read it and then contemplate, I don't know. You
read it, and then usually there's in the first part of the work, there's an exercise. So it gives you the exercises. Okay, so think about it this way, here's the exercise, and so then you go through it, and if you do the exercise, that's going to take you a few minutes and potentially longer if you keep doing it. So in the first part, he's giving you quite specific instructions often. So, okay, well, this is the way we're going to do the exercise. It's very guided, very structured. Now it's much more like, okay, I'm going to give you the words, and all you're going to do is wait. Get quiet, wait in silence. You say the words, and then let this presence arise in your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, let's have a look at the. It's a bit more teaching on it in here. Just going to go down to what is, yeah, we're probably not going to have time to do that, but we'll just look at the lesson, do a meditation. So, if you want to read the original, this is a prayer. So you notice now doing a prayer.
Father.
In each lesson, so it's like a direct communication with this presence in your mind, this awareness. Again, is it still dualistic somewhat, because you kind of calling on the Father, the source, which is actually you, but it's designed to get you closer to the awareness that that source is really you. Ultimately, you don't need to say a prayer. Prayers are not required if you know that it's you, and that's all there is. Prayer is only needed if you feel disconnected from it. It's a temporary expedient while we seemingly disconnected. Okay, so do you want to read the original and then read the alternative below that?
Father, I must return your love for me, for giving and receiving are the same, and you have given all your love to me. I must return it, for I wanted mine in full awareness, blazing in my mind and keeping it within its kindly light, inviolate, beloved, with fear behind and only peace ahead. How still the way your loving Son is led along with you, long to you. I'll read. Source, I must return your love for me, for giving and receiving are the same, and you have given all your love to me. I must return it, for I wanted mine in full awareness, blazing in my mind and keeping within its kindly light, inviolate, beloved, with fear behind and only peace ahead. Are still the way your loving extension is led along to you.
Yeah, let's change light to awareness, I think. Any thoughts on that?
Just for me, what just goes in my mind is this it's I mean, the love is coming from source. If you have to see it as separate, love is coming from source to me, the Son, and then I return it. So it's like,
yeah.
And then I suppose it just merges. It's just like it becomes one. Yeah.
That's the point. Giving and receiving are the same. In other words, it's all one. It's because it's one awareness. So through these, these lessons, you start realizing, well, this must be one then. Must return your love from giving and receiving are the same. You've given all your love to me, and so I must have that love. So I return it because actually in the end it's one awareness. And I am that awareness. For I wanted mine in full awareness, blazing my mind, keeping it within its kindly awareness. Violet, beloved, fear behind, knowing peace ahead. So it's clearly pointing us to this loving awareness, and that's what you are. And whether you talk about that awareness loving you, or you loving that awareness, it's really the same thing because there's only one awareness. And when you realize that fully, then you're enlightened. It's that simple. Okay, I am that awareness. There is no duality. There is no separation. That's all healed. There's just this one awareness. So how still the way your loving extension is led along to you. It's like, yes, the extension of this awareness seems to be separate, must discard its ideas of separation. and come back to this awareness and the stillness. Okay, so any thoughts on that first prayer?
I think that's what you've summed up. I said it's one.
And so if you can use the words to point you into that state and experience that one awareness, then the words are doing their job. And that's why it becomes a very short pointer to a meditative experience. Go into the meditation and actually experience it. And then this starts to make sense. Okay, well, blazing in my awareness, these are all experiential. It's not intellectual. He's talking about experiential knowledge. Hence the word blazing in my awareness, blazing in my mind, keeping within its kindly awareness. Okay, so any other thoughts on that? Or should we move on to number 2?
Number 2. Okay.
Okay.
My companion, we find that stillness now. The way is open. Now we follow it in peace together. You have reached your hand to me, and I will never leave you. We are one, and it is only the oneness that we seek as we accomplish these few final steps, which end a journey that was not begun. There's a companion translation to my brother.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, my companion should be small c, I think. Brother, he said brother. So this is actually Yeshua speaking to us. Brother, he's saying to us, you're my brother, my companion. We find it still now. The way is open. Now we follow it in peace together. So it's saying, I'm with you in the peace. I'm there already. Join me. You reached your hand to me and I'll never leave you. So for a lot of people, it's quite comforting. Sort of an image of Jesus taking their hand. And he's going to lead you along the way.
I actually didn't interpret it as Jesus. I interpret it as like another brother, or me talking to another brother.
Well, he's, there's a direct address here. He's saying, brother, we find that stillness now.
Okay, I thought that would have been like I'm reading it as myself saying that to another brother. Okay.
You could, it's still valid. But when he does that, sometimes in the course he does that. And then he's actually speaking to us as our kind of elder brother. Saying, okay, brother, you're my brother. We find that stillness now together. I'm with you. The way is open. Now we follow it in peace together. Saying, I'm with you on this journey. You reached your hand to me and I will never leave you. So trying to give us a lot of encouragement. And this is the right way. One is but this oneness that we seek. It's only this oneness that we seek. To accomplish these few final steps which end the journey that was not begun. So there again is the contradictory nature of truth and illusion. It seems to be a journey, but actually, in truth, the journey was never begun because it's not real.
Yeah, that's the illusion. Yeah.
So illusion isn't true, although it seems to be, and so that's why we need forgiveness for letting go, to let go of what was not true in our minds and open the way to what is true. Okay, so happy with paragraph 2. in final steps, and the journey was not begun. Any thoughts on that? Not really.
The second paragraph, yeah, I just thought, well, I can see when I read it as though it was me talking to another brother, but we sort of, for me, our interpreters, we together coming as one. And the final steps are basically to be one with Source and on the journey that never began because we're in the illusion. But we had to make that bridging step to get to one with Source.
Yeah. So, letting go of forgiveness is an illusion. It's the only illusion that undoes the other illusions. In truth, you don't need to let go of anything because you never were separate. The journey was never begun. But you think it was, and you think you're here. And so therefore, there's a correction necessary. And you need to go through that process of correcting your mind in order to realize finally that the journey was not begun. And none of it's true. And you've always been safe in pure form as well as perfect love. Okay. So should we do a little meditation on this?
I think before we do, John, in terms of the text, I think today's ones, I just want to know that where we are, and I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
Was today's chapter 27, section 3? Yeah.
Correct. Okay. This one called Beyond All Symbols.
Yeah.
So 7 paragraphs. Forgiveness vanishes, symbols fade.
Okay.
So again, you see the text, as it advances towards the end, talking more about the end in sight, and this imagery of forgiveness vanishes, all symbols fade. Things the eyes have ever seen or ears have heard remains to be perceived. More pointers to that. There's only 4 chapters to go, believe it or not, of the text.
I was going to say that that will come to an end sooner than the lessons, right? If you had to.
It will, but then there's the manual for teachers still to do. That's a whole other section. There's a clarification of terms. There's the song of prayer. There's the psychotherapy inserts. So there's still quite a lot.
Psychotherapy inserts.
Yeah, Helen Schucman wrote something called Psychotherapy, Purpose, Processes, and Practice, which was transmitted in the same way after the 3 books that make this up, Course in Miracles up. So it's actually included in the expanded version. The latest editions have all of it. Song of Prayer she did, psychotherapy practices, and you've got the manual for teachers. That was always part of, it was published originally, but in a separate volume. And the manual for teachers, there's a clarification of terms. So there's quite a bit still to do. All right, and then, because I've run it for a year, the last month or so, we actually we have some time. Then we do some poetry, because Helen Schucman wrote a whole lot of poetry. So just use the time to do the poetry, which is quite nice. So you'll get some kind of text reading every day, as well as a lesson until we start the new program next year.
Sorry, the psychotherapy you said was also channeled.
Yeah, the same process. She got it transmitted. It was after Course came between 1965 and 1972, and then they spent time editing it, and it got published in 1976. And then I think sometime in that next decade, she lived for another 10 years. Sometime in the next decade, the psychotherapy purpose, processes, and practice, I think it's called, Psychotherapy, insert ACIM name. Let's see what.
Because she was a psychotherapist, right? Or not psychiatrist, psychotherapist, academic.
Yeah, she was. So hence it was given to them because he was trying to give them another way of looking at psychotherapy. Because that was their kind of thing. Psychotherapy, purpose, process, and practice. That's what it's called. So it's you can download it somewhere. I've got it. Toolbox. It looks like a PDF. So there it is. So you see, it's not massively long, but it goes down. This is quite a bit. 11, 12, 19 pages.
It's a prerequisite to do the course, I guess.
Well, there's no prerequisite, but you generally do the text, do the workbook, do the manual for teachers, because that's in the main course. And then this was a supplement, sometimes sold separately, but they've included it in the latest edition of the Foundation for Inner Peace version, edition 3. They've included this, as well as the Song of Prayer, which is another thing that Helen was transmitted to Helen. So it's basically her complete transmission, whatever was transmitted, complete transmission has gone into the course. And then as I said, she wrote some poetry as well, some of which was done through the same process. She kind of got transmitted. So yeah, we've got quite a bit still to cover. All right, you're not going to run out of material. And this is quite interesting. You look at this psychotherapy from a Course in Miracles perspective, and it gives you some really, even to the practical, the question of payment. And so even addresses these practical concerns. So yeah, it's quite good.
Money is not, as I saw it says, money is not evil, it is nothing.
Yeah, exactly. But no one here can live with no illusions. So it's saying, well, yes, you're probably going to need money while you're here. But recognize, even while you're dealing with it, that it's nothing. Because everything here is nothing. Form is nothing. Form has no meaning. While he stays, he'll be given what he needs to stay, which is providence. That's the idea of divine providence. Okay, well, if you're really on your spiritual path, you will be guided, and you can get assistance with things like money and worldly concerns, but coming from a different place, coming from the Holy Spirit now, which is really just trying to help you to find your way out of the maze. It's not trying to get you more attached to money, but money can be useful, helpful in your awakening while you're here. Which is really its only true purpose, to help and facilitate your awakening. Yeah, so that's what's coming up. Some quite practical stuff. But we'll cover once we finish the text. And the manual for teachers is also good because it's practical. It's like manual for teachers, like the FAQs. This is question and answer. So it's quite a nice format.
Okay.
Which goes into questions that a lot of people might have about things that the course doesn't cover directly necessarily, but they're like, spin-offs off the main teaching. So it talks about things like reincarnation, psychic powers, which often people wonder about. It's like, but it's not answered in the text. So
yeah,
there's an answer in the manual for teachers. Yeah. Oh, so should we do a meditation for 10 minutes? So
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so making yourself comfortable. Sitting with your feet shoulder width apart, back straight. Cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes. And start off as usual with a nice deep breath in through the nose. Breathing in. The lower stomach, notice how the stomach pushes out. Chest pushes out, clench the sphincter muscle. Muscle used to contract the flow of urine. Squeeze the last drops out, lock the energy in, draw it up the spine to your heart center. And just put one hand on your heart. Feel this lovely life essence, this presence of love in your heart. Breathe it in to your heart. One hand on your heart center to connect with this essence. Breathing it into every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind. Just feeling that essence. Say to yourself, God is my Father. Or if you prefer, perfect love is my source. When you breathe in, just accept it. Every fiber of your being, perfect love. Perfect love is my source. Feel it now in your heart. Drop your attention to your heart center. Breathe into that area. Feel it tingling in your heart, your hand. So breathing it in, fusing every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your beings in this loving presence. Claim it as your source. And then feel that this loving awareness is yours. So you as its extension, love it. Truth as you are it. Perfect love is my source. And so I must be the same awareness. It's one loving awareness. In truth, no real extension, it's just one awareness. We use the idea of extension because we seem to be separated. So exhale, the truth of that, have a sense of letting go any negative thoughts or emotions, blowing them out. The breeze of your breath into the nothingness they really are. Going, gone. All the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. And just rest in this awareness. A few moments in deep peace, quiet and stillness. Feel this awareness is your true self. This is what you are. The very foundation of your being, your true identity, your true self. So it loves you and you love it. And Yeshua says, giving and receiving are one. My source, I must return your love for me. He says, forgiving and receiving are the same. And you have given all your love to me. As you receive it, so you give it. It's like giving and receiving one because it's one awareness. So just allow that realization to percolate into your awareness. So because it's been given to you, you must return it. It's one awareness, same awareness. So I must return it if I want it mine, full awareness. blazing in my mind, keeping it within its kindly awareness. And violet, beloved, fear behind and only peace ahead. How still the way your loving extension is led along to you. And so feel this stillness, this loving awareness rising in your mind. She says, brother, companion, find that stillness now. Sink into the stillness, because the way is open. Now we follow it in peace together. You reach your hand to me, and I will never leave you. So this guidance, this presence of the great master, Yeshua, is with you always. Now we follow it in peace together. You reach your hand to me, and I will never leave you. We are one. And there's only this oneness that we seek as we accomplish these few final steps to end a journey that was not begun. So with that, just letting go of everything, all thoughts, emotions, feelings, interpretation of physical sensations, let it all go, blow it away with the breeze of your breath, and just sink inwards to the peace that awaits you within. There's nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Breathe, relax, and be still. Sink into the loving awareness. And a minute or so of deep silence. And so just gently coming back, deep awareness into awareness of the breath, the body, and the senses, and via that the world. And on the count of 3, you open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, subtle flow of air through the nostrils. Breathing in, noticing any smell on your nose. As you do that, taste in your mouth perhaps. Pause at the top of the inhale. Scan your mind. Any thoughts that don't feel right at all, some are contradictory to this loving awareness, just observe them and be willing to release them with your breath. So perfect love is my source. And so I, as its extension, love it. And when you exhale, just letting it go, breathing it out. Go with the breeze of your breath to the nothingness it really is. So you pull your lower stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. And just rest here. A few moments on the count of 2 in this deep peace and stillness. Notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. That's what you're feeling and touching with your hands. Maybe there's a subtle flow of air on your skin. Breathe that air in again. Breathing in this loving awareness. Anchor it into your heart so you stay there for the rest of the evening. Carry it with you into your sleep and on into the week ahead. So it is said, so it is done. So on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. Just take a minute to look around, ground yourself back into this reality, so-called reality. Just observe the room around you, noticing an object, whatever object comes into your awareness. For a few seconds, notice that this object is very peaceful, your awareness, very peaceful, very calm. It's really the same awareness as you had when your eyes were closed. And when you look around, look at another object, you notice it's the same awareness, no difference. So what you're training your mind to realize is that it's the same awareness. It's only one pure formless awareness, which is your true awareness, which is you. This is your source, you are its extension. And in truth, there's only one awareness, which is why the source and its extension are one, why the source loves its extension and the extension loves its source, because they're the same awareness. So on that note, I think that brings us to the end of the meditation. And yeah, I think we'll call it a night there. So you probably don't want to go into the text now. But, thank you, Kim. I hope you enjoyed that. I did. So it's a nice, short, sweet session. And yeah, I'll speak to you in the week. If I don't see you in the week, we'll talk about the other thing we're talking about once I've got some feedback on it.
Thank you, John.
Okay, all right.
Namaste.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Okay.
Night.
Sleep well.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye for now.